Well then, His Majesty, what do you think about this matter? I heard that the performance was poor this year. If they do not respond with 50 gold, I will cancel the transaction.
Perhaps thinking I was nothing more than a poor little girl in captivity, they discussed important matters in front of me. Listening to the agenda items discussed one after the other, I stood there half embarrassed, half relieved. Also, I like this background of this throne room. It's pretty nice. I thought they'd be more interested in me. It could be because Nohl introduced me as, this is just Naala. Just Naala, don't worry about her. Maybe they're used to marrying women from other countries, as since my introduction I was brushed aside like an object placed on the floor. While that does make things easy, honestly it was disappointing. It seems that what made the impression was not me, but that the political assistant had taken a wife. I recall seeing people glancing at Nohl when I was introduced. What prompted this change of mind was written on their faces. Was Nohl's voluntary celibacy something so thorough that it caused everyone to be suspicious of this? If anyone has any objections, please state them now.
No objections. No objections.
The ministers gathered at the throne room and reported on the fields they were in charge of. The political assistant Nohl put everything together, and the King Toya makes the final resolution. The assembly proceeded solemnly and finished without incident. Then at the end...
And finally, I have a suggestion about the trio rule.
As soon as Toya spoke, the air in the room changed completely. There was a chilly atmosphere between everyone, even if no one actually spoke. One of the ministers, who had been looking at everyone for a while, coughed lightly and spoke in a cheerful way. Oh, you have a face. Well, that's interesting. You have a face. Okie dokie.
I'm afraid, His Majesty, now that the selection law has been enacted, the turmoil among the people has yet to subside. If we were to make a new proposal here, there may be people who will become dissatisfied with His Majesty's excellent decision. I believe there is already 11 persons who are unhappy with my decisions. Especially you, Orte.
That guy is the Minister Orte that Nohl spoke about. I peeked at Nohl to confirm, and as our eyes met, he smiled lightly. Actually, it might have been a provocation. I felt like he was laughing through his nose at me, as if saying, well, how far can you go? Look at me, then. This is the only time you get to make fun of me. I will persuade that man named Orte no matter what. Looking at the minister in question, I renewed my determination. The 11 sages were lined up, with Orte sitting at the head, and he didn't seem to move at all despite being called out by the king. Rather, he bowed his head slightly, a cool response.
We are not dissatisfied because we are advocating for the sake of our country and His Majesty. Thinking of the country, we must look not at immediate results, but at the future. If we increase the burdens on women as is, even the current stopgap measures will no longer be effective. Are you taunting the law enacted by your father? As a person involved in politics, I think I am assessing the situation calmly. Then, His Majesty, what should we do? First, we should eliminate the trio rule. I'm sure those of you with ears to the ground have heard of Naala, who is here today.
Upon the inquiry, Orte glanced my way with a stern look for a moment. The light in his eyes reminded me of a bird of prey as I swallowed my breath involuntarily. This person. But in the next moment, Orte nodded with a generous smile.
Mr. Nohl's wife became a bride due to the enactment of a punishment. Due to this incident, it's only a matter of time before the fear of punishment spreads. I've been thinking about how to avoid the women getting confused, but this is something we have to face head-on. If we eliminate the punishment, there will be more women trying to escape. We should strengthen our security instead. These women are already exhausted from being brought here forcibly. The pressure of this punishment can break them mentally.
As Toya looked down after speaking, another minister took this as an opportunity to argue.
If your majesty were to abolish the selection law that you yourself enacted recently, we could all have a wife before that were to happen. If a woman gets pregnant, she will become subservient, even if out of necessity.
Just listening to this assertion made me feel nauseous as I grimaced. Then Orte, who was supposed to be one of the people who opposed the law, raised an objection.
No. I think that the selection law was a good way to improve public order. Disorderly scrambles create unnecessary war, and deprive the men going into war of their energy. If the brutality of forcing ourselves on crying women continues forever, the spirituality of the Nasla people will be trampled upon.
He isn't just opposed to it, he can calmly admit to certain things. That makes him a more troublesome opponent than someone who is just being influenced. When these types of people are unable to bend, it's because they have beliefs and reasons they're unable to give up. And they're usually stubborn, as emotional appeals don't work. Auri complained about this before. Well, as soon as Nohl requested it, I knew he wasn't going to be someone who'd be easily convinced. Even still, confirming the reality made me want to sigh.
Orte, if you're aware of that, then why do you support my father's law to bring women here from Rus? That was the only way to overcome the predicament. Unlike you, the previous king couldn't talk about his dream. You think that finding a cure for the rot is a fairy tale? My apologies, but for as long as there are no results, that's all it is.
I could feel his conviction in the minister's sharp gaze and thick voice. On the other hand, the other minister who'd regained his spirits from Orte's remarks spoke up proudly.
That's right. It's impossible to counteract a curse from the spirits with human might alone.
The rot is not a curse. As long as you believe in such superstitions, research will never proceed.
Oh, do you intend to shift responsibility?
In order to calm everyone with the means His Majesty speaks of, we would need to prove that it is not a curse from the spirits. If we can't do that, then it's like telling everyone to walk forward in the unknown darkness.
I mean, both of these are kind of the same. But yeah, it's not like just a reason, it's like a big wall that he's stuck on. So what is that? He seems to be stuck on something. In other words, another way to look at it would be, if you can prove it, then it's possible. Also, unlike the other ministers who just denied everything, Orte's actions are... rather than opposing, he's more neutral. If he's neutral, why are you having such a trouble with him, sir? While I was thinking, I somehow felt a gaze on the side of my face. As I turned that way to look, Nohl turned his face away, as if exchanging positions. Seeing the assembly like this for the first time, the results was that I realized just how harsh the reality is. Whoa, even after things have ended, people are still... A mass of people walked along the corridor to the entrance.
Minister Orte, regarding distribution with the Eastern region. I cannot answer that question here. Please put it in writing.
Minister, there are people who are uneasy about the wheat stock amount from the north.
The issue of poor harvest and a lack of winter preparation. Regarding that, a resolution was issued to drain the West reserves to the north by 20%.
Thank you very much.
Minister Orte, regarding the signature from one of the aristocrats on the selection law opposition. Understood. Let's confirm it later. Yes.
Minister Orte's voice can be heard from the wave of people. From outside of the thrush, I could and yet could not see his face. I may not be able to talk to him. Even after the assembly ended, Minister Orte was surrounded by other ministers and senior officials.
So, I would like to talk about the tax rate for late payment of wheat.
Ah, we can discuss that tomorrow.
He seems pretty busy. I wonder if it means that he's very trusted.
There are new plans for the development of the slums.
I'd like some time in order to investigate the matter on my end. How long can you wait?
If possible, I'd like to ask for it in 7 days' time.
I felt myself getting impatient, as it was difficult to find an opportunity to speak with him. The people decreased gradually as we walked, but there were still 4 or 5 people surrounding Minister Orte. I've got to find an opportunity to talk with him. For a moment, a minister other than Minister Orte turned his gaze to look this way.
Is there something wrong?
Oh, no, it's nothing. More importantly, about the amount of sweeteners in circulation.
He was only aware of me for a short moment. He quickly turned away as if it were some kind of hassle.
And then we should get the details as soon as possible.
Understood.
The minister who had been talking cut off his conversation early, perhaps thinking I'd been sent by Nohl to spy on him. Finally, the wave of people dispersed, leaving only me and Minister Orte. This might be my chance. Minister Orte!
Oh, you would be the political assistant's wife who observed our session.
Yes, my name is Naala. May I have a moment to speak with you now?
Yes, but only a moment. Sorry, but I have to return home and put together today's bill.
On the surface, at least, Minister Orte, who was approaching old age, seemed to politely welcome the wife of the political assistant. However, I could see from his attitude that he didn't intend to treat me as an equal. I mean, obviously. Someone who does hold a lot of influence will have self-confidence and pride accordingly. Since I'm not in a position to be speaking with such a high-ranking official as an equal, Minister Orte's attitude can be viewed as natural. Unfortunately, I have no power here. Also, a woman's voice is weak. But of course, getting angry here will only cause me to lose my purpose. I was curious about something I heard in the assembly earlier.
Oh, does Milady understand politics?
No, I don't understand politics to the extent that I say that I did in front of a country's minister. Therefore, I wanted to hear your opinion. Orte squinted at me, as if appraising me. I conveniently interpreted his silence as permission to continue. If you don't believe that it's a curse, why don't you support the king? Orte's eyes narrowed even further. He took the time to stroke his chin, and his shoulders, wrapped in well-tailored luxury clothes, moved up and down as he exhaled.
The noble spirits watch over us. Just like everyone else, it's not that I don't believe in their existence.
His roundabout way of wording that made it hard to guess. Regardless of what his true feelings are, he's being very cautious of his wording. So then, do you also believe that the rot is a curse? I ask in order to figure out what position he should take. The silent glance directed my way is a little longer than before.
Do you have proof that it isn't a curse?
Proof? Having the question turned back on me, I was lost for words.
An ordinary disease would not cause a person's body to rot away. If this horrific phenomena is not a curse, then what is the cause?
That's... Indeed, even the reason why I survived remains a mystery. Similarly, the reason why the rot occurs can't be explained. Even in Rus, there are those who attributed it as divine protection. If the cause of the disease remains unknown, then it's difficult to give someone a convincing explanation. While I was at a loss of words, I felt like the air quality around Orte had become a little heavier.
With no definitive judgment material now, what's the difference in believing that it's the work of the spirits, or that it's a disease? Even if the rot is just a disease, are you saying we should tell the people to give up on their efforts?
The subtle change in tone and atmosphere showed Orte's true feelings. I found myself unexpectedly become awkward facing this overwhelming pressure. Efforts?
Indeed. As long as the rot is a curse, people can hope for salvation through their devotion to the spirits. However, I do believe that knowing the cause, being convinced, and making efforts to avoid it, that is also one way to find salvation.
Even if the result of that is death?
Humans are destined to live and die.
That's a sophistry. I quickly swallowed the words I was about to utter with my emotions.
If I may, milady, I believe we have exceeded a moment.
Orte walks as if to end the conversation. Glaring at his back, I search for my words. But, Minister Orte! I speak out with the strength to stop him. As the minister's pace slowed, I pushed the words out, feeling impatient. As you said, that might be one salvation. But I don't think that just accepting such a cruel death is fate. Looking for a new path, cultivating it, and the ability to think, these are the things given to us by the spirits that make us human.
It seems that, like our king, you are also a dreamer. Possibility alone is meaningless. If it can't be realized, it's no different from a dream.
I bite my teeth with regret. Upon seeing this, Orte turned around again, and this time I had no words with which to stop him. Thank you for your time. He didn't reply to my thanks. Minister Orte left with only a glance. Well, I mean, you initiated contact. That's a success in its own right. You're not gonna win this bet in a day, but I think you learned some valuable things from him. It's just that you've got a pretty difficult task ahead of you. I believe in you, girl. We'll see. I leaned back deeply in the back of the chair and sighed alone. Apparently, Nohl is having a discussion with Toya about upcoming matters and will be returning late. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but Minister Orte is going to be a difficult opponent. Persuading others is never an easy task, but upon actually meeting him, I got a bad feeling. Even Toya has been trying to persuade him for many years, to no avail. How can I turn that around? I remember the back of Minister Orte, who left a chilly glance as he walked away. Proof. That minister won't be swayed with only a compelling argument. I have to think of a way to not be made fun of as a dreamer. Should I go talk to Toya? If I want to convince him, I'll need more information about the rot. Toya would also know the same things that Minister Orte does, so getting information from him seems like the better option. And according to Nohl, he said it would be 3 months until the next legislative assembly. As long as there's a deadline, it's best to move quickly. First, I need to gather resources. I'll go see him tomorrow. I set my objectives and laid down on the large bed.
About the rot?
Any and everything you know about it. I mean, I'm okay with learning more about that sooner rather than later. I visited Toya immediately the following morning. As I got straight to the point, Toya smiled after a beat.
What did that Orte guy say to you?
Why?
I heard a rumor that the wife of the political assistant went to go pick a fight with Minister Orte.
A fight? We were having a friendly conversation. I didn't go to start a fight.
He's a pretty stubborn guy, so it's tough. He also looks at the person's true nature.
I'm assuming it's tough he meant to say, not touch, because touch makes no sense. Right. That's why I went to go talk to you, to prepare myself. What?
No, I just thought that you really are working on this.
Feeling a deep emotion in his soft voice gave me a hard-to-describe feeling. Even my toes and my shoes were on edge. Don't get the wrong idea. I'm doing what I can for my own sake.
Even so, I'm still happy.
I have no idea what to do when I'm smiled at like this, defenseless. That's not it. I'm not working for Nasla or even Toya, but rather for a bet with Nohl. Well, I mean, he is your husband, so it makes sense he comes first. Feeling uncomfortable, I decide to move on. That's enough about Minister Orte. Can you tell me about the rot?
Sure. What do you want to know?
Right. Well, first, I'd like to know why you decided that it's a disease.
My reason why.
Do you not want to talk about it?
No, the biggest reason is something personal. I was just wondering if it would be of any use to you.
After that preface, Toya looked down and began to speak. Okay, so is the wide consensus, like the most popular opinion about this, is that it's a curse from the spirits and not a disease. It's not something that can be cured, it's punishment from above kind of thing. But Toya's like, it could just be a disease. That's interesting. I didn't get that impression before, but maybe that's because Naala also kind of views it as a disease, not a punishment from spirits. But we'll see.
The biggest reason is that the most devout handmaiden I know died from it.
A handmaiden?
Yeah. She was a strong and kind woman. If she were killed by a curse, I'd never be able to forgive the spirits. Sorry. This is of no help to you.
Toya's smile brightened as if trying to wipe away the heavy air. He then switched topics with the clarity of a teacher preaching to his disciples. Still, it's interesting to get that little bit of insight into you before you're rude. I'm like, okay, so was this handmaiden someone you were related to, or just somebody you knew that, like, worked in the place you lived? Because I could see Toya taking an interest in people that serve him, so it's not entirely out of the question.
Alright, then let's list the other negative factors. First, there are those who don't believe in the spirits who do not get the rot. Second, on the other hand, there are those who have died among the temple shrine maidens.
Are there any materials on those people?
Even if there were, I don't know if we could get them honestly. It's very possible that a lot of things have been written off due to shame.
Shame, huh?
Our belief in the spirits runs deep here. Therefore, it won't be easy to change the minds of those who believe that this is the work of the spirits.
Are there any materials on high-ranking officials who caught the rot and non-believers in the spirits?
Nothing official, but there are some things I've personally collected that I'll give to you later.
That's helpful.
Ah.
He must be thinking he gained a friend. He smiled happily at my short, minimal gratitude. Doesn't take much. His straightforward feelings made me feel embarrassed as I felt a deep sense of guilt internally. Anything else?
I haven't tried to see if prayer works, but antipyretics seem to help prolong life in the early stages. That's one example of a cure being effective. Also, a lot of people got infected from touching the corpses.
Okay. Don't you burn the bodies in Nasla as well?
Yeah. We normally bury the dead in coffins. But those who catch the rot are burned in a cursed sacred fire.
Ah, so they don't get a burial. They're burned. Okay.
It's probably because of this that Orte wants to keep it as a curse.
What do you mean?
In Nasla, most people whose corpses get cremated are criminals. Serious criminals are executed by burning them at the stake. I don't think many of the bereaved families would accept this if it wasn't called a sacred fire.
In other words, it's more convenient to call it a curse to prevent the spread of the rot.
That's right. If you can't take immediate action, the violence will intensify many times over.
I also used to rely on my father's grave. Even if we know that the dead will never return, it's human nature to wish for the well-being of the spirit ascending to the heavens, and to maintain a connection with the bodies and bones left behind. The pain of losing a loved one. Simply just understanding those feelings, I understood that the situation is quite troublesome. That's pretty difficult.
If it weren't, I wouldn't be going through this much trouble.
Right. Thanks. The gratitude that slipped out was enveloped in a sigh.